Live from London, it's Plank of the Week with Mike Graham.
Good evening and welcome to Plank of the Week. It's Friday night on talkTV and this is the place to be because this is the show where you don't have to worry about judging anything because we'll do it all for you. I've got a fantastic panel. I've got Esther Krakue, I've got Peter Bleksley, I've got Georgie Frost, I've got Steve Denyer and of course we've got the plank, which is right here and that is what everybody's fighting for. We've got an awful lot of plankery to get through, so let's kick it straight off right now with Esther.
Yes.
Here's your first nomination.
The first nomination, the government.
The government.
The whole government.
You win.
The government, yes, exactly. They've been planks for as long as I can remember. Why? Because not only are they spending £170,000 per head, per migrant that they managed to get to Rwanda.
Yeah.
They are now offering them £3,000 as an incentive to voluntarily go there.
Yes.
So this government's fixation with the Rwanda scheme is so bizarre. It beggars belief. I wish we sent them to the Ascension Islands. Yeah. At least it's like a British territory.
Well, there would be a chance of getting somebody somewhere there.
Well, exactly. But the government is so obsessed with this that they're now offering people money to voluntarily relocate.
Right.
But not relocate as in go back to their country. It's not deportation. They're going to voluntarily relocate.
As they call it, a third country.
To be processed, to be rejected. Now, the government doesn't want to admit that, one, it doesn't actually know where many of these people are coming from. Because many of these people come off the boats and they destroy their documentation. Right. Many of them game the system, like we saw with Abdul Azili.
There's so many of them are Christians as well.
Exactly. They have to convince a Church of England priest that they're now Christian. And we have an acceptance rate, an asylum acceptance rate, almost more than double the EU. So they really have no chance of actually leaving, even if they come into the country.
And what effect do you think this is going to have on the human traffickers who are already doing a ripping business? Because they're going to now say to people, look, even if you don't get to come to England to stay, you can get 3,000 quid for leaving.
And give me my cut.
So just come anyway.
And give me my cut. They could double their rates this way.
Yeah.
But the government is using
get more people coming now.
Yeah, the government is using this to boost up its numbers. So they can say before the election, and God knows when that will be, but it will be this year, that we sent 10,000 people and we also spent £30,000 on top of the £170,000 per head to get them there.
I honestly think Rishi Sunak just wants to be able to get up at some point and say, see, I told you, we sent some people to Rwanda.
Absolutely. Even if they went voluntarily, we had to pay them for it. Absolutely, because they, as Esther said, they've hooked themselves to this policy. And by goodness me, they are going to get this through by crook.
There is an unacceptable level of cynicism on this show. I'm
sorry about that.
Because Rishi said he would stop the boats, and Rishi will stop the boats. Yes. We know that.
In fact, we can do better than that, because we hear he is saying he's going to stop the boats.
We've introduced tough new measures today to help us stop the boats. The new illegal migration bill means that if you come here illegally, you will not be able to stay. You will be detained and then you will be swiftly removed to your own country if that's safe, or if it isn't, then a safe third country alternative like Rwanda.
I mean, the good news for Rishi is that when he does get kicked out of office, which is going to be sooner rather than later, he's got a new career as a comedian. Because that's one of the funniest speeches I've ever seen him make. It does make you laugh.
It's so ludicrous. It's like paying a squatter to leave your house.
And he keeps his face so straight while he's doing it as well. Yeah.
It's like a robot.
You wonder if he's got his fingers crossed behind his back when he's saying that kind of stuff. You know? So this is all absolute utter cobblers. But I'll just keep saying it. If I keep saying it enough, I think this is now the new Conservative policy. If you just keep saying it enough, people would start thinking it's actually happening.
Yeah. It's the definition of madness.
It really is.
Or as they say, if you tell a lie often enough, you convince yourself it's the truth.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes, but we're not convinced. Anyway, it's a very good start. Peter, what's your first nomination?
Just for a change. The Metropolitan Police.
Wow. No, it's not the Metropolitan Police, it's Sadiq Khan.
Oh, well, I'll do the Met later.
Do the Met later.
OK.
It still works equally, though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Sadiq
for a change.
Carnage Khan. Sorry, Sadiq Khan. Sadiq Khan, bless him, right?
Yes.
Figures reveal that in his drive for diversity,
it's very
equality and inclusion, with his hard-pressed economic times, he can spend £366,000 on 6 DI officers, operatives, call them what you will.
Yeah.
Okay.
All with a view to making us more diverse,
and
more equal, and, of course, more woke.
Yes.
But anybody, I mean, the foolishness of this actually divisive kind of things is that if you don't realise that we live in a diverse nation, so therefore, in all likelihood, you're going to have a diverse workforce.
Certainly in London you are, anyway.
Yeah, you must have been living under a rock for 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean, it's utter nonsense.
Yeah, exactly.
What a waste of money.
I mean, if you advertise a job, you will get a pretty broad cross-section of different people in London coming to apply for it, won't
Correct.
you? But the trouble is, a lot of these jobs are not really jobs, are they? No. Because they're sort of, you know, chief assistant to the diversity general. So nobody really knows what you do. He's already under fire for his nighttime czar, isn't he? Yeah. He's paying some woman.
I mean, that was
you might know about it. It's 120,000 quid.
We have no nightclubs left in London. They've all been closed. So she's trotting around the globe on this fancy job, but what's she doing? I mean, there is...
She's a DJ from BBC Radio 6, isn't she?
Yes, Amy LeMay.
Yeah.
Yeah, who, I mean, she hasn't been seen for... She's having a great time, presumably, but £120,000, nightclubs are shutting left, right and centre.
Yeah.
There's
no... London is shutting right, left and centre. I mean, I see pictures every night that people are taking. I saw one last night from Covent Garden at about sort of 11:30. Streets completely deserted.
Yeah.
Covent Garden used to be rammed with people till at least 1 in the morning.
7 days a week.
7 days a week. Yeah, but now people just aren't either coming in or they're not going out. I don't know what the problem is, but you certainly don't need a nighttime czar. Well, it could be the stabbing, yeah.
Changing work patterns. It's the fact it's really expensive to get in. It's the fact it's expensive to eat. It's just expensive.
ULEZ.
Very true.
Yeah. It's all going on.
Yeah, but it's expensive. But I mean, that's not stopping people going out earlier. It's just that they're not staying out early. It's staying out later. I mean, I go to a lot of restaurants that are rammed full of people, you know, and so there's not a shortage of money. It's just a shortage of people wanting to stay out late for some reason.
Come to the commuter belt. It's very different.
That's why I don't live there.
Exactly. Everybody's going out there. There's no cost of living issue or anything like that.
Well, you know, you say that, but I mean, I spend my weekends quite often in Sussex, and a lot of the parts of that part of the world are completely deserted because, you know, people just don't go to the towns. Yeah. Because they just either, one, can't get there because there's no public transport and there's not really very many taxis, and you can't drive if you're going out for a drink. So actually, you know, certain parts of the countryside are kind of deserted as well.
But I got charged over £8 for a pint the other week.
Did you?
Right, £8.
Was a pint of vodka though?
No, I wish. I wish. And when you think you can go to the supermarket and pick up a box of a dozen beers for 12, 13 quid.
Yeah.
As opposed to 1 pint for £8, you can see why perhaps
you can
choose it.
No, I do get
stay
that.
At home and have
I do get that. I do get that. Well, let's have a look at Sadiq Khan though being heckled, because this is always a good one. This is when he went out to Ealing Borough Council and the Ealing Town Hall, and there were some people demonstrating outside. Here's what he said:
joining hands with some of those outside who are part of a far-right group who are. Some of those outside, some of those, let's be frank, let's call a spade a spade. Some of those outside are part of the far right.
These were people who were demonstrating about the expansion of the ULEZ zone. Not really far right. Just didn't want to pay any more money for driving.
Can I just ask, what is the definition of far right?
Well, in Sadiq Khan's case, it's anybody to the right of him is far right, basically.
That's ridiculous.
Well, that's everyone, isn't it?
You know, yeah, exactly. Far right should only refer to... I mean, I never use the phrase personally because I just think it's not accurate.
Well, you know? Yeah, exactly. And people who use it have never read a history book.
No, exactly right. Let's stay with just what's right as opposed to what's far right. Georgie, what's your next one?
Yeah. I think it's the parking.
It is. Royal Surrey County Hospital.
Yes, I am going for Royal Surrey County Hospital, Mike. Yes.
Very good.
Parking.
Where?
Basically, because I want to. This is my segment. I was there yesterday.
Go for it, George.
Do you know what I mean? There was, and I thought, there's nothing in the papers about it, but I'm still going to do it.
No, you should.
But actually, there was yesterday.
You're right.
It came out the same day. I couldn't find a parking space, and so therefore was almost late for my mammogram. Not important, apparently. Right. Far more important, hospital appointments being missed as a result.
Right.
8 million a year of outpatient appointments missed, not necessarily because of parking, but they are missed. This doesn't help. But it turns out that what was working was their car parking attendant was spot on in making sure that those poor people who couldn't get a parking space and who desperately parked somewhere on the ground were given a ticket. So isn't that marvellous? You are desperate to get to your appointment or to visit your sick relative and you still get a parking penalty.
Do they actually have a car park?
Very limited car park. So I had to hot-foot it to Tesco, run to my appointment, and a sweaty boob on a mammogram is never a good start.
Right.
Sorry, Peter.
Peter's looking a bit
I know, but you know, one has to talk about these things. Get your breast checked, ladies. But you know, this is a really important issue. And it came out yesterday that actually they made 1.6 million in parking fees. But the real scandal, more than if you think about people who are having cancer treatments, all sorts of things, who are going to hospital, is the staff having to pay. I mean, they have this argument that we take in these fees and just think how many extra nurses.
Yeah.
The extra nurses that you're hammering for parking charges.
But also, most of them tend to take the money to a private company, don't they? Because most
they outsource it. Absolutely, they outsource
so the money isn't coming straight.
Most of them are owned by private equity companies. But I can't think of a worse job to have than to be a parking attendant. You are honestly, you're a paid nuisance.
It's a parking warden you're talking about, isn't it? It's someone who's giving out fines.
Yeah, but you're a complete nuisance. That's your job, to be a public nuisance.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, I could think there's lots of reasons. If you're sort of pretty angry person,
when I lived in Edinburgh,
like being outside,
when I lived in Edinburgh, all of the parking attendants in Edinburgh, all the parking wardens had previously been big issue sellers because it was the only thing that was a step up. You know, because everybody else would not want to be a parking warden. Yeah. But people who were selling the big issue actually did, because it's not a bad job.
There's also these really convoluted systems where, I mean, bearing in mind, you know, you might have to be rushing into the hospital to see a relative who's passing away. There's these systems that these companies have introduced where you check in, but if you don't check out, you're still charged. And you need a degree to work out.
I've had that problem in, I think they've changed the system now. But they used to have a pay and display system in one of the hospitals that I used to take my kids to. And you take your kid into hospital, you could be there for an hour, you could be there for 10 hours, you could be there overnight, you just don't know. But you can't buy a ticket that's eventually going to, you know, you can only buy a ticket by the hour.
No, which is why now they've done a check-in, and so when you leave, you press your thing and you check out. The problem is, it automatically takes about a tenner.
Right.
For Royal Surrey, I don't know about other hospitals. It takes a tenner, which then takes about 3 to 5 days to come back to your account.
Yeah.
So if you are visiting every day, you could be behind by about 30, 40
That's
quid.
Ridiculous, yeah.
It's unbelievable.
And if you can't get into that particular car park, you're saying you have to park somewhere else, and then you get fined.
Person and you can't, you have to park, you know, however far it was, half a mile or whatever, in Tesco. You don't know the area, you're desperate for your appointment. The stress of that is unbelievable.
It is. It's just another story of why the NHS is so useless.
If that's the reason people are missing fundamentally, it's more important than money here. People's lives are at risk.
Exactly.
You know?
Particularly when you've waited probably about 2 years for the appointment. And then you finally get there and you can't park.
Yeah.
And
you've missed it. Yeah.
So that is dreadful. Well, more about the NHS coming up a little bit later on. Steve, you've got somebody called David Scales.
Yes, David Scales is the head teacher that you wouldn't want to look after your kids. This man is another level. So, you know, like there's been this whole thing for about 2 decades now about kids taking holiday out of term, you know, and fines were introduced, I think, about 20 years ago. Well, this guy is now doing stuff like sending staff to check cars, check through bins at pupils' houses, just to make sure...
To see whether they've gone on holiday.
Indeed, checking whether the lights are on as well. If lights are off for a few days...
Is that legal?
Yeah, this whole thing, there's a video that he posted out on his Twitter account, and I think he seems a bit...
Mad.
Deranged. I'm trying to be polite.
Well, gave that away. I mean,
trying to be polite, I think he's deranged. Well, let's have a look at the video and see. We can make a judgment.
What parents are doing is they're saying it's an illness, but actually the car is now no longer in the drive, the bins are no longer moving around the house, and there's no activity in the house over a few days. So we're putting this down as an unauthorised holiday, and we're issuing a fine.
Yeah, they're always issuing fines, these people, aren't they? Get lost.
Who do you think you are? What the hell?
Also, how does he know they haven't sold the car? How does he know they may not have just moved house for a while?
Okay, come on, that's unlikely.
It's possible. It's possible.
No, but the thing is, it's none of his business. Who the hell do you think you are?
It could be any reason.
But I mean,
how awful is that?
The problem is, yes, people do take their kids out of school during term time. The reason they do it is because it's so expensive to go on holiday during actual holidays. And also, people have got a much less kind of, shall we say, rigorous approach to schooling now, ever since COVID, when the government said it was all right for the kids not to go to school for a year, and it was OK for them never to go back and to just work from home.
Exactly.
Well, I think kids should be at school because you can't educate an absent child.
That's true.
But Mr. Scales is the last kind of person to engage with parents and kids.
He's off the scales.
Encourage them to come in, isn't he?
Can I just say, I'm so old that when I was at school, they didn't care. You can do what you want. I mean...
Yeah, but what about this other video? You say there's a video of him actually snooping in through people's letterboxes.
Well, I mean, that's it. I just imagine that, Mike, in my own personal space. Yeah. And I think he probably has. Yeah. But he makes lots of those terrifying teachers on Grange Hill that like pussycats.
He's
just got that look in his eyes.
He's got that wide-eyed look.
You wouldn't want to, like, you know,
mad staring eyes, we used to call them. But yeah, I mean, I think it is a problem. And I can understand a school wanting to make sure that kids are educated, as you say. But at the end of the day, there's a limit to it. You can't be bringing them up every day going, where the hell are you?
Rummaging through bins.
Yeah.
the holidays are not the problem.
No.
It's the absences from school for parents that don't really care about their kids. Those are the issues. So don't go after responsible parents who are going on holiday.
Exactly. Now, coming up, we're going to have a mention of COVID, actually. We're also going to look at something on television and Peter's Metropolitan Police once again. This is Plank of the Week. We'll see you after this. All right. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. We are well underway and we've already got 4 very good contenders for the show this week so far. It's my turn now, and I'm going to take you back to, remember those great days when every sort of afternoon you get to about 5 o'clock and you'd be going, well, better get around the TV because there's going to be another press conference at Downing Street and Chris Whitty's going to come out and go, next slide, please. And sometimes he'd have Boris Johnson with him, looking bedraggled and terrible. Sometimes he'd have Patrick Vallance with him. And you might remember, talking of schools, how, you know, they issued this edict because Nicola Sturgeon issued the edict that children, if they were to go back to school, would have to wear masks because obviously that would keep them safe and that would very much stop them from getting COVID. It now turns out that Patrick Vallance has written a diary at the same time as he was actually telling us all this, which completely contradicts all of that, and in which he says it was obviously very clear that Nicola Sturgeon's decision was a political one and not a scientific one. But we went ahead with it anyway because we didn't want to look as if we weren't doing what she was doing. So basically, they admitted, Patrick Vallance has now admitted that they were not following the science. There was no suggestion that masks would do any good. And he actually writes in his diary as well, there's almost minimal chance of any child becoming in any way damaged by getting COVID simply from attending school.
Sometimes I wish COVID had killed all of us. Every single human being on the planet
just
wiped out mankind. Yeah. Then we wouldn't have to be talking about clowns like this, would we?
If you were sitting watching some of those briefings, you would have thought it was going to do that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, quite.
I mean, who can forget the interminable questions that Robert Peston would start? I was in the car once, right, because I wasn't able to attend in person at the press conference on my television, and I was going somewhere, and I thought, I'll just put it on the radio. So I was listening on the radio, and somebody rang me, right? I was on the phone for 15 minutes, and just before the phone call, Peston had started his question, and when I put it down, he was still asking his question. Like 15 minutes later. You know, and the questions always were, why are we not doing it hard? Why did we not do it sooner? Why are we not doing more? And it also now, it turns out, that the same applies from Patrick Vallance in his diary about the vaccines for school children as well, that they weren't really necessary either.
It's incredible.
It's incredible. They're rewriting history as if they never said it.
Well, I mean, my catchphrase now is this country is governed by morons, which for some reason always applies. Now, every day at work, there's some story that makes the sentence apply. But also, these people are so confused why inflation is so high and why the economy has basically hit a brick wall, but they were calling for harder, longer lockdowns.
Yes.
Are they just moronic?
And they keep saying how they've been helping people with furlough money. Well, no, you haven't. You've been helping people with our money. You know, they didn't invent furlough money that nobody owes anybody anything. It's our money.
There's
and
no
they're now making us pay it back.
Well, yeah, they gave you free money and halved your savings.
You know a bit about this, Georgie.
I mean, I wouldn't suggest that we're in that sort of parlour state just because of those decisions. I mean, they contributed, obviously. The problem is, look, be that as it may, it was difficult times. It was difficult times. Decisions were made. They were made across the world. They weren't just following Nicola Sturgeon. They were following countries across the world.
Yes, but it wasn't as if
and
somebody...
Boris Johnson did try not to do that. And to a degree, credit to try and do that.
But it's not as though there weren't people who were saying, this is mad.
Why
are we doing it?
There were absolutely...
Because I was one of them.
There were absolutely. People like you, absolutely. There were people questioning it. All I'm saying is, OK, be that as it may, it was difficult decisions. But then they kept doing it every lockdown, kept it going. But then to have a book come out now and sort of try to change what you did then, I think is so disingenuous. I can forgive you for making tough decisions at a tough time. But now...
But what worries me about it is not so much that it was a tough decision, but that they took the decision knowing that actually there was no reason to do it.
Yeah.
That's my problem with it. They knew. It wasn't as if they've only now discovered.
There was so much information about mask wearing saying it was ineffective. So much at the time.
Well, they started
and they said
by
at the
saying
time it was about getting fear that people would stay away from each other, fear that people would wear these masks. So loads of the policies were made based on politics and the fear of politics.
Yes, exactly.
Rather than
but they kept showing us graphs. They kept showing us evidence. They kept saying that the science was clear. This is now not what they're saying, and that's my problem. you know. And those of us who were questioning it were written off as nutcases,
conspiracy
theorists, conspiracy theorists.
I must say that you should be congratulated because I remember listening to your show, you know, every morning.
Yeah, me and Julie Hartley-Brewer as well.
You asking the questions that nobody else dared to.
Right.
And you got us
now everybody's asking the questions as if, you know, nobody was doing it at the time. I find it extraordinary.
I'm so glad that I was completely untouched by COVID because I spent all of it drunk in Downing Street.
I'll tell you what we can do is show you Jonathan Van Tam. He was another one of the Three Musketeers. Remember him? Let's have a look at him having a go at TV presenting.
Good evening. I'm Professor Jonathan Van Tam, Deputy Chief Medical Officer for England. And many of you may have seen me giving public health announcements from the podium at number 10 Downing Street. But tonight is different. Tonight, we're going viral.
What on earth was that?
I
don't even know.
Yeah.
Apparently, this was some kind of BBC Christmas lecture that
I thought he was going to be shirtless.
There was great Steve Denyer there, just off to the stage, saying he's not going to be naked, is he?
Oh, dear God.
Do you remember when they were also pictured? I think Van Tam and Valance were pictured at Wimbledon at one point at the height of all of this nonsense, you know, where they managed to get themselves tickets for centre court for the final, you know. And people were just going...
Do you not think they were slightly not enjoying it, but it was a
level
they loved
of
fame that
they loved it.
Never tasted
definitely
before.
Like narcissistic. Definitely.
No, they all did. I mean, there's no question that the likes of Matt Hancock, you know, Whitty, Valance, Van Tam, they absolutely revelled in it. It was extraordinary.
Yeah. He tried to nick one of my cans of lager at Downing Street.
Did he?
Upon a time.
I hope you told him what
he didn't get away with it.
No,
he didn't get away with it.
Send him to number 11. Right, Esther, you're next.
Yes. Hol Oaks.
Hol Oaks.
Has anyone watched Hol Oaks?
I've only ever seen the end of it, you know. Because,
well, it's clearly not ended because it's still going.
No, but I've only ever seen the end.
I
used to watch Channel 4 News. I mean, it's so bad now I don't even watch Channel 4 News. But when Jon Snow was on it, I used to watch Channel 4 News just to get annoyed.
Yeah.
And sometimes I would join the channel shortly before the channel, and Hol Oaks was just finishing, I think.
Ah, OK.
So I'd see the end of it, and it was always some kind of, you know, cliffhanger. And, and then they went into the music. I think it was Hol Oaks.
Yeah, it's Hol Oaks, and it's such a terrible show. Anyway,
it really is.
That terrible show, believe it or not, has got worse. So there is a 12-year-old character who is basically being encouraged to transition because she doesn't feel like she was born in the right body.
Okay.
And for me, I hate the fact that it's so funny. But the trans woman telling her or advising her.
So there's a trans woman advising her on the show.
On the 12-year-old child to transition, who apparently this 12-year-old child is also transitioning in real life. So it was kind of a story arc based on real life.
Sorry, what, from girl to boy or boy to girl?
Girl to boy, I believe.
Right.
Anyway.
How'd you grow one?
And I kid you not, the trans woman advising her is like, it's so ludicrous. She's like, your life is in your hands. Don't bunk off school. And I'm just thinking, so transition went well for you then?
Yeah, right.
You sound like a woman.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was the worst marketing you could imagine.
We've got the clip. Let's have a look at it.
I'm a boy, but my body's all wrong, and how am I supposed to tell my parents?
I'll help you in whatever way I can. But you need to know that your life is in your hands. So stop bunking off school. And then, and only then, you can start thinking about how and when you can tell your mum. Rose, you can't move on with your life until you've told the people you love who you truly are. It's the best feeling in the world.
He's just come from the Merseyside derby there, hasn't he?
I mean, he sounds like,
it was, what,
sounds like Booker T.
Yeah. Also, it's a bit of unnecessary touching there, isn't there, for a 12-year-old?
Well, yes, but I just can't believe that they brought this person out as the counsel on transitioning when she looks like a bloke.
Yeah,
the transitioning didn't help.
You're not supposed to be able to notice that.
Mike,
you're supposed to be able to identify as a woman.
I saw an Adam's apple.
Right.
I'm glad they've renamed it Hol Oaks now, haven't they?
Very good.
Very good.
Apparently, MPs have actually been complaining about this as well, saying that it's not suitable for children's audience, which Hol Oaks probably, quite frankly, is a children's audience, right?
Well, because in the early 2000s,
Yeah.
the NHS was getting, referrals for trans kids in the single digits. Now it's in the thousands. And MPs are like, clearly there is something that has I don't know, cause this change. And there's stuff like this, encouraging kids to find who you are and stop bunking off school.
It's the best feeling in the world.
Your life is in your hands.
Yeah.
Undoubtedly, some of it is a trend.
Yeah.
No question. Like kids have
a couple of years from now, most of it will be gone.
The most frustrating thing is we're peddling lies. Because for the tens of, like, the kids in the single digits that wanted to in the early 2000s, you could have just told them, you can't change your gender, I'm sorry. I mean, you can dress how you want, but...
Well, this is the week when they've now said they're not going to allow puberty blockers to be given to kids under a certain age. But, I mean, yeah, thank goodness. But, I mean, presumably Hol Oaks haven't got that message.
Clearly not. Or maybe this is a backlash against that. I don't know.
Yeah, it really is. Shocking. Anyway, right, Peter, now it's time for...
My former employer.
The thin blue line.
The Metropolitan Police.
Yes. Are you one of those armchair commentators that Sir Mark Rowley was talking about?
Oh, he's got a right up with me, yeah. Well, he is a bit flaky.
He is a bit, yeah.
If you say hurty words about the Metropolitan Police, Sir Mark doesn't like it.
He doesn't like it,
So could you all just stop?
He's noticed there's been a lot of abuse online of police officers.
There has been.
Yeah, maybe they should get offline.
Exactly.
You know,
where else would they make most of their arrests?
Yeah, and perhaps certain police services should stop putting stupid things online. That would help.
That would help.
Anyway, you're nicked, you're nicked, you're nicked, and you're nicked. All right? You're all nicked.
Yeah.
Oh, no, hang on. The Met Police have a thing where, actually, I'm de-arresting you, de-arresting you, de-arresting you, and de-arresting you, right?
Okay.
Thank you.
Because that's what they do these days, right?
That's a lot of paperwork, isn't it? So you've got to put the paperwork in for arresting them and then put more paperwork in for de-arresting them.
But not now, because you can de-arrest on the streets.
Okay.
Cuffs first, ask questions later.
Fine.
So Mr Nayat Gordani, who's gone on a pro-Palestine
This is the
march,
Iranian dissident.
That's it, right? 37-year-old fella.
I've had him on my show.
Takes a placard with him that says, Hamas is terrorism.
Here he is getting arrested. Look, there's a lot of them, the cops, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. Because they thought he was a hooligan. They thought he was assaulting people.
They thought he was going to the Millwall Crystal Palace game, clearly.
Yeah. So he got arrested on suspicion of assault.
Yes.
Whereas actually it's been alleged that he got assaulted.
Yes.
And he was merely holding a placard up.
Right.
Hamas is terrorism and a strap line
It's a very controversial line, that though,
when they prescribed.
Oh, yeah. Hamas are terrorists.
Yeah,
I mean, who would think it?
Yeah, who'd have thought that?
Apparently that's an illegal sign.
And the strap line on it was Hamas were prescribed a terrorist organisation in 2000 and whenever it was. So there he is. Of course, some of the pro-Palestinians didn't like it.
No.
A scuffle ensued.
Yes.
He gets nicked for
They didn't nick any of them, did they?
No.
That was fine.
No.
Because they've got the side of right on their side.
Oh, well,
right?
you know.
Haven't they?
Indeed. So he gets handcuffed, carted off. His placard gets screwed up by a police officer. I don't know whether it's been seen again.
No. Well, this is the second time he's had a problem with the police. He did this once before, which is why we had him on the show, and he was holding up a sign, and people were pelting him with soil, with rocks, with all kinds of stuff, because he was holding up a sign that said, "Are Hamas terrorists? Answer yes or yes." You know, and he was apparently dragged away by the police again for his own safety.
Yeah, for his own safety. De-arrested a little while later after they'd reviewed footage.
Yeah.
You know, and realised that he wasn't actually a bad guy. He was just there exercising his democratic right to protest.
Exactly.
But actually, the pro-Palestinian lot, or many of them, took objection to him holding up a piece of paper on what was printed, the truth.
Which is also, by the way, government policy, funnily enough, which the police seem to think isn't a good idea. We've got some footage, though, of somebody asking them what they were doing.
Can I help at all? Why you didn't want to film?
Yeah, I'm documenting what you're doing.
Okay.
Is that okay?
No, it's not a problem. Just conscious why you wouldn't film a gentleman being arrested.
Because he's got an anti-Hamas flag and he's been arrested. And yet, what I've seen here, haven't been arrested.
Right, okay, Johnny.
They don't like being quizzed by people, particularly on camera. They really don't like it.
But
They're always asking people to put their cameras down.
And I can't believe that police officers still have this problem with being filmed, yet they all wear body-worn video.
Yeah,
right.
I mean,
come on
to an
here.
extent, I do feel sorry for police officers trying to do their job and then someone sticking a camera in their face. Do you remember when Dawn Butler used the kind of BLM era to shove a camera in a police officer's face, who was apologising to her and the driver for getting a stop and search mixed up because they were driving a car that had the description of a reported stolen vehicle. So I can understand it's uncomfortable. But at the end of the day, this is something that you sign up for. He's at a protest, and he's at a heated protest, so he should understand this. It's not some hungry politician trying to jump on a bandwagon to make a name for himself. It's at a hotly contested.
But they should also expect, though, ordinary people, particularly people who are covering these marches, if they happen to have phones or they're filming things, that if they're going to wrestle a guy to the ground, who to all intents and purposes is pretty peaceful, they should expect to be.
The reality is now, if you do not film some of these things, I'm concerned. Because the way that the police are arresting people and what they're doing is a concern, and actually it's your protection, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, look at all those instances of the police turning up at people's houses to talk to them about things that they may have put on social media. And they always turn up with about 6 people. We remember the case of the autistic girl who was dragged out of the house by the police. The one who was known as, what was it, the lesbian mama. Yeah. You know, these kind of incidents, if nobody had filmed that, what the hell would have happened then?
Yeah, well, now, sadly, the police are getting wrapped up in so many social causes. Yeah. This is their bosses. That's what they're telling the front line to do. This is what you get. Yeah, and Mark Rowley, of course, has just recently, this week, asked for a pay rise for all the police as well. Yeah. Good luck with that, Sir Mark Rowley. Coming up in a little while, though, we've got the royal family, believe it or not, because they've been in the news a bit this week, and somebody I've never heard of from Steve Denyer. This is Plank of the Week. Without a doubt.
Yeah, ready.
Welcome back to Plank of the Week. We're more than halfway through now, and there's already some very, very big contenders. But I'm afraid this one might top them all. Georgie Frost, the royal family.
Controversial. I know. I should say...
Why pick the whole family?
No. Maybe the royal family press advisors, but I don't think they have any right now, because clearly whoever they have isn't working. Maybe they're on holiday, I'm not sure. Right. But this has been an absolute car crash.
It has.
A textbook example of how to really mess up something that should actually originally have been quite simple. Right. OK, so Kate needs abdominal surgery. We wish her all the best, absolutely. Then people start questioning, and you have to remember it was at the same time as King Charles obviously had his cancer. Right. He was getting highly praised for prostate charities, etc. So there is that kind of juxtaposition there of one being very vocal about it, one not. But look, we don't need to know what's going on in her life. Get well soon, absolutely. Right. But then people started to question, where was Kate? Hashtag, you know. Right. So what seemed like over on Mother's Day, a beautiful picture, turned up on wherever it was, Instagram, which then very quickly became killed by all the media outlets because it'd been faked or had been edited, heavily edited, not faked, heavily edited. Then Kate, apparently the photo was taken by William. Kate then came out and had to apologise. Why on earth she had to apologise for this? I don't know who did it. Right. I don't really care. Right. It seems really stupid.
It just seems idiotic,
anyone not knowing within their press department. Look, this is even a 5-year-old child can work out that this photo isn't quite right. Let's not put it out there.
I mean, it's so bizarre to me, and I've been saying this. I know a lot of people went, "Oh, why don't you leave her alone? You know, she deserves to have her privacy and all of that." Well, up to a point, yes. But my question is, how could anyone have allowed this to happen?
She does, absolutely. She did that.
It's that idiotic.
It really is.
It's almost like they deliberately did it.
They should have seen this coming. I mean, who is it? Harry and Meghan, her advisors. I don't know. They should have seen this coming down the line. The public love Kate. Yeah. Around the world, they want to know she's okay and happy.
Also, she didn't even have to put a picture out because they'd said she's not going to be seen till after Easter. It's not Easter till the 29th of March. Quite. So why did they even bother?
And then to have to throw her under the bus like this, to sort of make her a whatever, is just unbelievable. The whole thing is
have a look.
Sorry mess.
Just have a quick look before I let any of you say anything else. Piers Morgan looking at the photograph and picking out exactly what was wrong with it.
There's a glaring empty space where Princess Charlotte's sleeves should be. Charlotte's hair seems to end abruptly on her left shoulder. The corner of her skirt is oddly pointed. In the background behind Prince Louis's legs, the white step is a clear break and a jagged gap where there should be a straight line. And the list goes on and on. There are 16 basic rudimentary errors in total. And that's not including question marks of whether the leaves on the trees show this part of the photo is actually months old.
It is extraordinary, really. I mean, you couldn't have more errors in it if you tried.
Where are the wise and sage voices that are employed by the royal family that just say, "Excuse me, Your Majesty," or whatever they have to call them, can we just have a think about this, please?
Right.
When this story came up, I was like, this is such a non-story, it's not even funny. And I said it was a non-story because I felt sad that Kate felt the need to put this picture out because of all the rumours going around about Kate having vanished because she's getting a BBL done, which is hilarious because she would not look good with a massive
BBL is...
Brazilian butt lift. So she'd look like a Kardashian.
Well, that's obviously ridiculous, isn't it? Why would you even respond to that?
She's been very transparent. I've had abdominal surgery. I'm going to be back after Easter. Leave it at that. But she felt, I feel like she felt pressured to put a picture out. I think the problem here, though, is that up to a point you can go along with that and say, well, leave it at that, that's fine. But we're not talking about anyone who nobody has ever heard of. We're talking about potentially the next queen of this country, right? She is married to the heir to the throne. She will and has given birth to another heir to the throne who might become king. You know, she's not a small-time person that nobody has any interest in. And part of what is the interest is that they're part of the royal family and they are under intense scrutiny. And you can't just take 3 months off.
But the royal family, under Her Majesty, had this thing. Look, whether you agree with that or not, say nothing. Just they did not need to put that photo.
That used to be their policy.
So they're sort of doing this hybrid approach of saying nothing but then saying something under pressure.
Right.
So
and it's causing even more conspiracy theories.
Well, like the picture that was taken and published in America on TMZ of her and her mother in a car.
Yeah.
Now, supposedly that was her having been to the school to pick up the kids and then driving home. But, you know, even at that, people are going, well, they must have known that somebody would take that picture. And why
it was her and William in the car. I think she was shrouded in shadow and turned her face away.
That was the other one. That was the one with her and William. That was after the debacle at the weekend.
Was recent.
No, I'm talking about before that. There was a picture that was taken of her supposedly with her mother driving in a car, having been to pick up the children from school. But it wasn't published in this country because all the newspapers agreed not to, because it was an invasion of privacy. But it was published in America. So everybody's seen it, and it's a full-on face. But you wonder...
What is this? What is the point of this? It proves that she didn't have surgery? It proves she's still alive? I mean, what is the
exactly.
point?
That's my point. Why bother?
When was it taken?
You can avoid the paparazzi if you want to, right? It's very simple. You don't go anywhere near them. But you know if there's paparazzi in Windsor Park because you've got security people that will tell you.
Yeah. I mean, I feel bad. I just
weird.
think someone should be able to have a highly invasive surgery and say, I'm taking some time off and not feel the pressure to
Well, you can do that, but the problem is...
To do something public.
Yes, I get that, but there are too many holes in the story because I know plenty of people who have had abdominal surgery. I've spoken to plenty of women who have had things like hysterectomies and all the rest of it, and not one of them has said that they would have to take this long to recover.
Well, the thing is, she hasn't revealed...
It's a very long time.
About 3 months, but I'm not saying she's had that at all. I have no... and I wish her absolutely the best. The holes are because... They've done this, like I said, this hybrid approach. They're going to slightly being silent, but then they're not, and then they're... Look, any PR person worth their salt would have predicted that the country, like your good self, like us, would be interested in what Kate's up to. Have a plan in place.
Yes.
This has been an absolute
nightmare,
disaster.
Exactly right.
Well, when my mum raised me, she said sometimes women have medical things that are women's medical things.
That's fine.
So don't ask any questions. Just get on with it, and if you need to know something, you'll be told.
Quite.
Yeah, and they could have had that approach, which is how they started, but not how it's finishing, unfortunately. Anyway, Steve.
Can we talk about Prince Harry's underpants, Peter?
Yes.
No, I'd rather not. I've just had dinner.
Oh, do you know what I forgot to do, though? I meant to show you a picture, because we've got the original picture from Sunday.
No.
Steve, sorry, back to you.
Can we talk about Prince Harry's underpants?
Yes.
Oh, my word.
That's disgusting. This is not that sort of show.
My goodness me. Sorry, I moved a bit sharply then. So this is the guy who's apparently bought his underpants for $250,000.
Right.
This comes from this incident in Vegas years ago where Harry apparently whipped them off.
Yes.
And
well,
then...
there's a famous picture, which I think we may have, of him playing pool with a load of strippers.
Yeah,
I often refer to it when I say he was a lot more fun in those days. You know,
that's
before he went
old
to the
Harry,
whole self-help gurus of
Before
California.
he got married.
Before he got married. Well, how often have you said that? Anyway, that's not...
He whipped these pants off and danced with strippers and apparently played air guitar with a pool cue.
Would you stop that,
that's
please?
what he
That's
was
horrible.
playing it with.
This is not my... That's not what we do on my show. Thank you.
My section is just dissolved into ridiculousness.
Yes.
But anyway, these have been... Apparently, there's this guy, San Diego Club, is a strip club boss, Dino Palmiotti. You know him, Peter.
Best centre-forward West End.
I preferred him when he was playing for Armour. But, you know, the problem with these guys is Dino Palmiotto. What a great name. Sounds like he's a sort of... an
he should be a Virgin Radio presenter.
In Goodfellas or something, isn't it? But has he really spent $200,000? I mean, because this is the woman who claims that she was one of the strippers, right?
Yeah, a dominatrix.
Who said she was going to sell them on... The story gets even more bizarre. She said she was going to sell on OnlyFans, and then OnlyFans said that she couldn't do it.
Yes.
I don't know whether that was because of an interception from Harry and Meghan.
Dino's a smart fella.
Yeah,
I think there would have been a huge exodus.
Did they sign the pants? DNA testing? How do they know that his...
Well, she said she sold them for 200,000. He
and I'm
said
sure
he bought
she's
them
a
for
very
250,000.
honourable, honest woman.
He wants to display them in a cabinet in his class.
It's a good point, though. I mean, how do you even know they're his?
What he's going to do is he's going to harvest Harry's DNA from said underpants.
Right.
And then he's going to clone it, yeah? And then what will happen, before we know where we are, there'll be a load of ginger balding blokes with beards populating the earth and moaning about
Starting
everything.
in San Diego.
Yeah, feeling hard done by.
Can we just have...
We're all called Dino.
Can we have another sound effect, Mike?
No.
Oh, OK.
What,
I was enjoying that too much. Go on. Ready?
No, I hate that. No. You nearly had me swearing there. It's not that kind of show. You know, you save that for your other crappy shows. You know. Dino Palmiotti. Anyway, that's the end of that, isn't it? We've got the final section to come. This is, of course, Plank of the Week. Coming up next, it is the one thing that makes everybody proud to be British. Well, I'm going to make them Plank of the Week. That's my plan. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. This is the final furlong, the final section. We've already got some really, really good nominations, but I can't decide who to give it to yet. And I don't really want to give it to myself. But this one, I have to say, is brilliant, right? You might remember when the budget was held last week, Jeremy Hunt got up and said, the thing that makes everybody proud to be British is the NHS. And there was a sort of collective groan all around the country where everybody went, oh, really? Not anymore. I mean, you've just talked about the parking problems in one hospital, which I'm sure are replicated all over the country. But you know how we're also always hearing from the old junior doctors that we haven't got enough doctors, we haven't got enough money, the consultants, we haven't got enough money, we need to be able to work more hours so that we can spend more time in the private sector and buy more Lamborghinis, and we haven't got enough nurses, and we need more money. And Jeremy Hunt's just given them another $6 billion, right? Do you know that for the first time in the history of the NHS, they now employ more people than ever? And it's an incredible number, 2 million people are now working in the NHS in this country,
I'm pretty sure it's like the largest state employer in the world.
Well, it makes a third of all public sector employees in this country. There are 6 million or so public sector employees, and for the first time in the history of the NHS, we now employ 2 million. So the idea that they're somehow understaffed and they haven't got enough money is complete and utter balderdash.
I think it's brilliant. I think it's absolutely brilliant. We'll all soon have a nurse or a doctor each.
Yeah.
How many of that number are actual medical staff? And
well,
how many
there's only
of them
about
are
half
admin?
of them are actual medical
Well,
staff.
but this is the
so you've now
problem.
got 1 million people employed in a service which is called the National Health Service, doing nothing to do with health.
Well, that's why this whole thing is ludicrous.
Yeah.
And also the idea that the NHS is what makes people proud to be British. I can imagine Winston Churchill when he was giving, we shall fight them on the beaches to save our NHS. We shall bomb them to smithereens to save our NHS.
It did come in after that.
But that's the point. It's ludicrous. He makes it seem like...
I mean, I'm sure there was a time when it
Britishness.
was great, and I'm sure there would have been a time when people were very thankful that they could go to a doctor. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, the doctor used to come to us.
Yeah.
You know, the doctor would come to the house.
Saved my life.
And see how well, you wanted to die in the COVID epidemic.
Oh, yeah, that's
He wasted his bloody time there. But look at this. I've got a graph here which says that back in 1999, you might remember who was the Prime Minister then, Mr. Tony Blair, they employed just under 1.25 million. So 750,000 people have been hired in this century alone. So basically in the last 23 years, 750,000.
How much has the population gone up by?
The population has probably gone up by about 10 million since then, I would say.
Just trying to
but, you know,
out the maths.
I mean, the point is there's more people in the population than there are in the NHS, I'm sure. But the bottom line is, though, that they've got loads of people.
It's just
and they've got loads of money.
unsustainable.
And how can they still be so useless?
All right, I've got to admit, I am actually an NHS Trust CEO.
Are you?
I'm on 250 grand a year. Yeah, I actually lower myself to come and hang around with you plebs.
Well, you only have to work about 1 day a month doing that, don't you? I mean, that's the great thing about getting one of these health chairmanships, because that woman got one, didn't she? The post office woman. One of the things that she was given, Venables, apart from being offered the chance of becoming the Bishop of London, she was given a health trust to run.
Ching ching.
After completely and utterly ruining the post office and ruining people's lives. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable.
They love looking after themselves, all that establishment, don't they?
They do.
Yeah.
Well, never
definitely
mind that you got fired for being useless. Here's another job in which you can be fired for being useless and then get paid loads more money.
Yeah.
It is extraordinary, isn't it? But anyway, there we are. So now I've got to choose.
Yeah.
Exactly
Clearly.
who. Maybe I should take a sort of.
Clearly, it's the government.
I should take an opinion from all of you. Who would you suggest?
Clearly, it's the government.
That's your own nomination. It's Rishi Sunak rather than.
Well, I've heard all the. I mean, listen, the Metropolitan Police is an honourable mention. I would probably be going with that.
But we do get that. They do get it quite a lot.
£3,000 to bribe people.
But Rishi Sunak also gets it quite a lot as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the royal family.
I think I would go with the PR people, the royal family.
I mean,
it's the biggest story in the world.
That's not fair. That's.
But the only problem is we don't know who they are.
True.
Yeah.
And
that is the point.
And there may not be any.
Those people.
So it might not be anybody's fault.
But we know it's Rishi Sunak's fault. We know who he is.
One of the world's finest
just blame Harry and Meghan. Sorry, just joking.
One of the world's finest dictators is in danger of becoming democratic. Come on, it's down to you.
Right.
Don't start asking us what we think.
Exactly.
No, I'm not in danger of becoming democratic. You just think I'm becoming democratic. This is how I fool you. It's a bit like Rishi Sunak when he says, I'm going to ask the public what they think, and then I'm not going to take any notice of them. Don't be ridiculous.
OK, so clearly it's the government.
So I think it might have to be Rishi Sunak. Because if it's not, it's going to have to be the NHS.
No!
You know, and then you'll all give me a hard time for choosing.
Because we all love it.
Yeah, because it's so great.
Makes us proud.
British,
Well, I would say that if all 4 of us, 5 of us even, needed an operation, the length of time we'd be waiting would probably be something like 7 years.
Shocking.
You know?
Probably, yeah.
That kind of thing. And that's if you can get a parking spot. So, come on. So you both think it should be the royal family. You think
I'm happy to go with the £3,000 thing.
I mean, it's just
no foresight in that one.
I think that's absolutely right. I quite like Patrick Vallance as well, but again, I can't give it to myself every week. You know, that would be wrong.
You could.
All right, so let's give it then to Rishi Sunak and the government.
Yay!
Because at the end of the day, it is so ridiculous that not only have they not sent anybody to Rwanda, apart from 3 different Home Secretaries, not only have they now had people come here from Rwanda, they're now suggesting that if you come here from parts abroad, you will be given £3,000 to go back to Rwanda.
Yeah.
I mean, beggars belief, isn't it?
It does.
It really does. Anyway, that was Plank of the Week. Thanks very much indeed to Esther. Thanks very much indeed to the incredible panel that I've got. Georgie Frost, Steve Denyer, Peter Bleksley, of course, as well. I'll be back tonight at 11:30 with The World According to Mike Graham, which have got the new feature, Loathe Island, which is fantastic. This is where people get to come in and tell me where they would send people and who they would send to spend time on their own on a tropical island, which has probably got some kind of anthrax on it or something like that. Anyway, we'll be back next week with Plank of the Week. It's all on YouTube, of course, as well. If you missed it, that's where you can get it. We will see you then. This is Mike Graham saying good night. Have a lovely time.